Hello and welcome back to X-Plane 11 and a very special episode in which I'm going to be talking about my experiences at the Flight Sim Show 2019 that was in the UK at RAF Cosford. I was kindly invited as a guest from JustFlight, so first of all thank you to JustFlight for inviting me as a guest, and I spent the entire Saturday, though it was a 2-day show, I was only there on the Saturday. I spent the entire Saturday wandering around, grabbing some interviews for you guys, talking to the developers, seeing what I could learn to bring to this channel, to bring to you guys, to give you guys an insight as to where the flight simulation community is going and what you can expect over the next year or even longer from the flight simulation community. I have a number of interviews that are going to be in this video. Audio quality not the absolute greatest, there was a lot of background noise, but I have tried to make it in a way that it was at the quietest time I could find, and you should be able to hear most, if not all, of the interview sections. There are interviews from JustFlight themselves, there are interviews from Deadstick, Chris Cheetham, there are interviews from Fulcrum Simulator Controls, there's going to be an interview from Infinite Flight, we've got an interview from Komodo Simulations, which is something I've never come across before, helicopter simulators, really great. There's also going to be an interview from who else was there? Infinite Flight, I mentioned them. There's going to be an interview from Honeycomb Aeronautical as well, and BA Virtual, all about virtual airlines and what a virtual airline does and why you should join that. In addition to that, I'm going to be talking about my impressions over the coming, I don't know how long this video is actually going to be, but I'm going to be talking about my impressions and what I saw and what I feel is great and where we are going with the entire flight simulation genre and the flight simulation community as a whole. What can we expect over the next year? To help me whilst I am actually giving you my impressions, I have got the Beechcraft Duchess 76 up in X-Plane 11, and I am flying from Manchester Barton over to Coventry Airport, and this is, I still stand by what I said, this is the greatest general aviation aircraft I have ever flown. It's absolutely fantastic. If you want to see the review for that, do go check out the X-Plane 11 checklist. Playlist. Checklist is what we use to make sure we're doing things correctly on an aircraft. Playlist, and you'll see my review for that. But I'm not going to be talking about the Duchess in this particular video. I'm going to be talking about the Flight Sim Show, and what better way to start than by talking about Deadstick. This was a title I was very, very excited about last year. I was interested in seeing where it was going to progress, and I am glad to say there has been some massive progression, and I would say it's getting close to a state where it will go into an open beta or a closed beta or something like that, maybe an early access, depending on what Chris decides to do. There is an interview coming up very shortly, but before the interview I'm just going to talk about a little bit about what I felt when I tried out the sim, or the game as it were. When I got there, there were 2 other YouTubers actually doing a little bit of a challenge, and one of them was actually Squirrel, so he might have some information on this as well at some point. But when I sat down and started having a go, the first thing I noticed was the change in physics. The physics have really changed. The aircraft feels more dynamically alive now, as opposed to before, where it felt a little bit, I would say, a little bit dulled in certain areas. Now it feels a lot more alive, a lot more active, a lot more twitchy in certain places as well, particularly, for example, as you're coming into land, there is a little bit of twitchiness on there. There was also a little bit of a demo of the multiplayer systems, and that looks really, really great. Chris will be talking a little bit in the interview about that multiplayer system and how and what they're planning to do with it. It was just very interesting to see that over the course of the year, how much it's changed. With the main, like I said, the main thing that I saw was the physics change. Everything else was refined, but the physics felt changed. So when I'm talking about refined, having a look at the environment, the true sky looked like it was refined, so the cloud layers were a little bit better, the fog, things like that, sun shining through. The mesh for the actual terrain looked refined. Everything looked a little bit more realistic. Before, it looked a bit I wouldn't say generic, but it didn't look real in the sense that it looked like it was designed for a game. Now it looks real, so I found that it was a lot more engaging, a lot more immersive in that form. In terms of the collisions and things like that, land too hard, I had my strut, the bolts shear off from the actual aircraft, or maybe just collapse or whatever, and the landing gear went flying, and I thought that was pretty cool. And just overall, everything has just been improved in small ways, apart from the physics, which I said have definitely changed, just a lot more alive, but still friendly, and that's something that's important. Chris was saying that, and he is going to say in the interview, that he wants to try and keep it in a way that they can get new people coming in who want to play it as more of a game as opposed to a simulator, and still be able to fly it. And that was particularly that was one of the particular reasons he chose the aircraft that is in the game as that aircraft, because it's a little bit forgiving in that way, easy to fly, you know, click a few buttons and away you go. It's not a jet, it's not one of these, it's not like this aircraft that I'm flying here, and it just makes it a lot more accessible to both genres, or both, should I say, both types of players who want to play it as a game, or who want to play it as a simulator. Anyway, I've rattled about this long enough, and I think now I'm going to jump into the interview with Chris, and I'll see you straight after that. Back with Chris at Deadstick Simulator at the Flight Sim show, and there's been a lot of changes since we last interviewed you.
Yes,
so
yeah.
Let's see what we've got. We've got a lot of different things. I was just trying out the multiplayer with him, badly, but still.
Yeah, so the big challenge since Cosford last year when we played it has been the environment. We really wanted to focus on getting the environment to the size that we want, and there's been a huge amount of challenges in doing that because the world is procedurally generated. We discovered that in our world we have 2.3 billion trees, and we have to generate those all procedurally, and it was taking upwards of a day, 2 days to generate them every time we changed the parameter. So we've had to kind of spend a lot of time going back over the tech that we've been making to refine it to get to the point where we can iterate on this and make the game look good. So unfortunately we've been kind of delayed longer than we would have liked with technical challenges.
Right.
We've now kind of solved all those, and one of the things we're working in parallel is the multiplayer. So the machines we've got here are hooked up, as you can see today. So this guy, the red capture you can see here, is actually the avatar for one of the other players that's connected.
Okay.
And we have 2 players in the game here. We've generated a little drag course for Cosford so that planes can compete against one another. So it's just giving an indication of what we intend to do for competitive play much longer down the line. So you can see here the environment is much bigger than we've been able to show off previously. As I say, we've got like the fidelity now with the grass and the trees and the long shore distances. If I just start up the drag race here, we'll shop the multiplayer. So if I stop the aircraft, you see outside we've got our start line here. So I'm about to disqualify myself, but I'll fly down the track and let's give you an idea of what we have to do.
So like you said, this is sort of inspired a little bit by the aircraft racing and the drag racing and stuff in Reno and things like that. So
this is something that was just bespoke created for the event this weekend.
Right.
But it's a good way of showing off the flexibility of the plans for multiplayer. Quite hard to fly and talk at the same time. Try not to crash horribly. Otherwise I might be showing the damage more. So the intention is you fly beyond the finish line, touchdown. So one of the things we've added in now is we track all the stats flying around. So every touchdown, has wear and tear effects on the aircraft, but also it's having an effect on you as a pilot and how you are perceived. So we've got this global reputation system. So when you're playing in story mode, depending on how well you fly, how well you deliver cargo, or how badly you fly, will affect everyone's perception of you and therefore the job they're likely to give you. So that's another thing that we've been doing, spending a lot of time working on.
So with regards to this sort of procedurally generated world and this specific scenario that you set up, is it something that you intend to in the future maybe have creators, modders or the like being able to create these sorts of, let's say, air races or whatever?
Yeah, I think so. The focus for early access is on the story mode and having multiplayer so you can play with one another, but certainly longer term having it set up so that players have got the ability to create their own experiences in here is a big part of what we see the long term plans.
Yeah. I do like that the touchdown indicator telling you, how hard you hit the ground or whatever, because I think it's something that when we're actually flying in X-plane or something like that, you have to get add-ons that tell you what you're dropping. That your touchdown distance was this long, this many feet or this many meters, and your landing rate was this many feet per second or whatever. But you just got it built in just like that, which is actually it's really quite good, because at least that shows that, I think for a sim like this, like you said, because you're going to have that global reputation, that's really important, and it's something that other sims don't have without the sort of outside influence, which is really nice. Brings something else unique to the sim, as well as sort of whatever else you've actually got in there, the entire bush pilot experience, which I think I had a look, and there've been some add-ons for Flight Simulator and things like that bring in some sort of bush pilot thing, but nothing to this extent. And to be completely honest, this is probably one of the titles I've been really looking forward to playing and watching carefully the development as you've been tweeting and everything like that.
Thanks
so
very much.
I'm really excited to see this. And one thing I picked up on was the flight dynamics have changed a lot since I flew last time. I could definitely feel sort of the propeller actually pushing me over as I was on full throttle, and things like that. I could feel that actual pushing over additional wing pulling me to one side, which was really, really cool to experience. But also, just looking at the way, I'm assuming it's still True Sky that you're using for the atmospheric fog and clouds, but also the way the environment, sort of the grass and things like that, that's something that's not been seen in a simulator. You see that in a game, but not in a simulator. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this plays out to customers. You said last year that you want to try and appeal to both. Yeah. So is the focus still on both, or has the focus shifted slightly towards one market or the other over the course of the year?
No, I'd say it's definitely on both. We want to try and create a bit more of a game experience, but without compromising on the simulator side of things.
Right.
Which is partly why we chose the aircraft that we did. We can simulate all the systems fully realistically.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the aircraft's simple enough that if you're coming at it from more of a game perspective, you can just kind of flip the master switch up, push the throttle forward, and you're ready to fly. But going back to what you said before, the other thing was we're just trying to make the barrier to entry as low as possible in terms of what you need. We try and put as much in the box as we can. So just going back to the multiplayer side of things, all the multiplayer is kind of inside the box. We're hosting our own servers. You can create your own rooms if you want to, otherwise we'll kind of matchmake you with other people. We've got voice chat now, so you can tune into radio frequencies and chat to people over the radio if you want to. So all that exists inside the sim, and that's what we're really keen to do, to try and make sure that everything is there that you need. So.
Right, and in the story mode, I assume multiplayer is going to be either working as a team or working competitively against each other to complete missions, or how's that?
For early access, the way I describe multiplayer is I call it passive multiplayer.
Okay.
So when you're playing your single player game, you're essentially doing your own thing, you're working autonomously, but the world is being inhabited by people doing their own things as well.
Right, okay,
so as you're flying around, you might see other aircraft with other pilots that are doing their own jobs.
Right.
We have the option to create your own rooms as well, so that you can fly with a set of pilots that you know from the real world. Right. And then later down the line, we'll start to introduce more of the cooperative elements. But for now, the focus is on the single player element, but being able to inhabit the same world and kind of make your own fun that way. So.
That sounds really good. And early access, you were mentioning early access. When are you planning, or when, at the moment, what is sort of the current timeline for early access, and how long do you expect it to be in early access?
Yeah, so obviously we've said a few dates before, which have come and gone. One of the big challenges with that big setback was with the environment and the tech that we've had there. So we've had a lot of technical hurdles to overcome to be able to produce the game we want to produce. We're past those hurdles now, which means that the focus is on refining the experience, refining the gameplay. So with that in mind, we're aiming for a launch early next year. We don't want to be any more specific yet, but that's understandable.
And the early access period, you're thinking probably might last maybe a year or so in total, because generally early access, I know a lot of people tend to do it between 9 months to about a year and a half before they take it out into a beta or a full stage. So I'm assuming you're probably looking at something similar to refine your mechanics.
So I think, up until this point, it's kind of been my baby and my dream of what I think a push game should be. So I think we've got our priorities of what we think the next thing should be to do to tackle in early access. Once you put it out there, obviously we're going to get a lot of feedback from the community and what they think is the direction we want to be taking it. So I think it's a great period for us to try and figure out what we want to prioritise on and get stuff done there. But yeah, we're fairly open at the moment as to how long that period should be. We want to make the experience right. So
brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic, and I can't wait to actually play Deadstick and actually bring it to the channel, because it's something that I think is going to be really cool.
Well, thanks
as
very
you
much.
said. So yeah, Chris Cheetham, Deadstick Simulator. Can't wait to play it, and it will be out. You heard it here first. Sometime next year, early next year, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Thanks very much.
So as you can see, there was a number of things that I spoke about in the interview with Chris, and thank you to Chris for actually taking his time out to talk to me. And even after that, we spoke for a while, and we were just joking around and things like that. It was very, very nice to speak with him and see his passion for the actual project. It was really, really great to see that sort of passion for the project, which I like it when you see developers with that sort of zeal and wanting to make sure that their project does really, really well. So best of luck to Chris, and I cannot wait to play with this sim or game. It's difficult when you go to a flight sim show and you've got something that's actually a sim and a game at the same time. It's difficult to actually differentiate between the two, but it really did feel fantastic, and I kept coming back for this little drag challenge to see if I could actually set a good time. I think I set a decent time. At one point I was on track to beat everybody who had tried for the day, and on the final second I actually flipped my aircraft. So well done me. Anyway, that's a disappointment for a completely different day. Moving on from that, the next one that I am going to talk about is probably going to be Infinite Flight. Now, Infinite Flight is a mobile simulator. So it's on tablets and mobile phones, Android or Apple, and it's very interesting in the way it works. Now, I was very skeptical about mobile simulators because I think that mobile phones don't have the processing power for it. How are you going to do these things? How are you going to get the graphics? And just how is it going to work? You don't have controls, you don't have throttle, you don't have a joystick or a flight controller or a yoke or anything like that. So how are you supposed to fly in a simulator on a mobile phone or a tablet? Well, they had a number of iPads out there, and I was allowed to try one of them. I say allowed, I just sort of picked one up, and surprisingly, it's not bad. It really is not bad. Is it something that I would prefer over something like X-Plane? Probably not, but the fact that you can take a simulator or something that's close to a simulator, stick it on a mobile platform and go out there, it's a neat idea. It's really neat because let's say you're on a journey and you just want to fly around a little bit, it's there. You don't have to lug a massive computer around. It's sort of literally in the palm of your hand, which I think is one of the unique selling points of Infinite Flight. It's the fact that you can just pick it up and away you go. It's in a constant development phase. I would say that they are constantly improving it, constantly adding new aircraft, and I did have a nice interview with one of the actual people at Infinite Flight coming up in a few minutes, who was kind enough to explain the concept behind it, why they've done it, what it does, how it appeals to the market, and what's actually available. And one of the things that has really got me interested is the multiplayer, but in the fact that you've got air traffic control, and the air traffic control is actually with real people. Now that side of it interested me more than the actual flying side, because to be an air traffic controller on a single screen and a small mobile sort of tablet screen, I think is a fantastic idea. I think that could work brilliantly, and if I was to get into Infinite Flight, which I am considering, I think I might really like to try my hand at air traffic control as opposed to actually flying the aircraft. But in terms of flying the aircraft as well, it was really intuitive. It was really intuitive to use the tablet to actually steer the aircraft, so you had that as your yoke. That was clever. Everything is touchscreen, the throttles and everything, and instead of having to click all these little buttons as I'm actually doing in X-Plane, they had everything as little pop-ups. So you could pop up a little bit of a menu and adjust your mixture, your prop, your throttle position, your autopilot settings, so on and so forth, which makes it a lot easier to actually fly on a tablet with a 7-inch, 8-inch, 9-inch, 10-inch screen, because you're not having to try and fiddle with these little switches, which obviously on a tablet are going to be even tinier than they are on a screen, on your computer screen, and you don't have the mouse to sort of give you that fine tuning. You're sort of having to touch and things like that. So they have really thought about the interface, and that in itself, that was really impressive. So I'm going to go into an interview with Infinite Flight, Jason at Infinite Flight. Thank you, Jason, for your time in advance. Well, I say in advance, this is after the actual interview is taking place, but before the interview is actually shown. Thank you for your time. You really did explain a lot of things, and hopefully you guys enjoy this little presentation from Jason about Infinite Flight. So I'm here with Jason of Infinite Flight, and he's just going to go through why you have a mobile flight simulator, what Infinite Flight can actually do, and the general way in which you fly and the sort of the multiplayer element of it, because I think that's quite big for Infinite Flight, and the amount of users that actually use it on a daily basis. So first of all, what is Infinite Flight?
Right, so Infinite Flight is a mobile flight simulator for iOS and Android, and we have a fleet of over 50 aircraft. We have a global, like you said, multiplayer flight with ATC. And you asked why Infinite Flight. So we are why mobile. So there's a lot of competition for desktop and PC sims. There's no shortage of those, and they're getting better and better, of course, with Microsoft coming along. So we saw an opportunity to provide something in the mobile space that was that had something unique, and by unique I mean our multiplayer and our ATC.
Right, and you're talking about ATC and the whole multiplayer now. How would that ATC work? Is it built in as programming, as we're used to in sort of Microsoft Flight Simulator, Prepared, things like that, or is it real life ATC and real life flying? So could you be both?
So you can be one or the other at one time. And so how it works is you have, when you have access to our multiplayer server, you can choose to be an air traffic controller. If you have enough experience points to access our advanced server, then that gives you we call it our expert server. Then that you can actually take a test. We vet our expert server air traffic controllers, and they're real people from all over the world, and they have access to a 2D menu interface where they can tell aircraft what to do, and then our players who are on that same server are able to respond with a series of commands as well.
Okay, and with regards to servers, is this how many people go on a single server? Is it something that where you can see hundreds of aircraft flying around, or
I don't know if your camera will be able to pick this up, but this is a third-party app done by one of our developers actually before he worked for Infinite Flight. This is the traffic across all three servers right now. So we have the casual server that you would start on as a new user, the training server, which is where you start to build your experience points, and then once you have enough XP, we call it, then you have access to the expert server, which is for pilots who really want to follow the rules and do a good job and follow ATC instruction. This is the traffic across all three servers. So as you can, I don't know if you can see that. If you zoom in, then you can see there's quite a lot of traffic actually around Heathrow right now. But as you zoom out, you asked how many. We have usually several thousand at any given time.
Right, and I can see on there is a lot going on. So that's actually really interesting. And with regards to aircraft and physics and things like that, how do you approach that obviously on a mobile space where perhaps processing power is a little bit more limited, or graphical power is a little bit more limited? What do you choose to focus on?
Yeah, so I'm in the marketing department, so that's a question for one of our developers to answer in depth. But the short answer is, so the device is your yoke, and so that's the approach that we take to flying. Is you don't need any extra equipment to do it. We are working right now on our developer API, a new version of our developer API that's going to allow users who want to get a little more in depth by hooking up peripherals to be able to do that. You can do that a little bit now with Android, but with iOS it's trickier because Apple doesn't let you just plug things in.
Right. Yes.
For the most part. But with flight physics, it's all developed in-house. It's our own physics engine. We don't have any third-party development at all in the app. So this is why sometimes, aircraft development takes a little bit longer sometimes for us, because we're doing it all in-house and we don't have third-party programmers taking years to add something to the sim.
Yeah. So how many aircraft, and what is the range of aircraft? Is it just general, or do you have jets?
So we have everything from your 172 all the way up to your A380 and everything in between. We have fighter jets. Very recently, in the last 2 years, we've been working on redoing our aircraft and adding live cockpits.
Right.
So we have working instruments from steam gauges up to your Garmin G1000. And so, yeah, and the fleet of aircraft is, if you include all the variants, it's over 50, 60, 65 aircraft, I think, with hundreds of liveries.
That's a lot of aircraft. And flying anywhere in the world, when I was demoing and playing around with it on one of the iPads, I noticed that you had a fairly realistic scenery all the way around. So is it sort of orthographic scenery, or a global scenery, with meshes and things like that? It looked really good. So I assume that's also something that you've looked a lot into, trying to get very realistic looking scenery through all your areas.
So right now we don't have any 3D objects on the ground.
Right.
That's something that we're working towards.
Okay.
Our scenery that you see when you're flying is 15 meter per pixel satellite imagery.
Okay, so say satellite.
So you're seeing actual satellite imagery. We have elevation data pretty much between 60 degrees north, 60 degrees south,
okay,
and everything in between. And so these are things that we're also iterating upon. So having something that gives us 3D objects on the ground, whether it's auto-gen or otherwise, is something that we're moving towards.
Yeah, but always moving forward.
Always iterating. And we do have a subscription model for our access to our aircraft and our global scenery.
Okay.
But the beauty of having a subscription model, which it seems everyone is moving towards, is that it allows us to iterate on old, let's say if you had purchased a 737 2 years ago on an in-app purchase, there's not a lot of incentive for us then to redo that airplane for you because you've already paid for it. Whereas with the subscription model, we're able to not just follow the money trail, but actually continue to improve on all of the aspects of the sim.
Right, yes.
And we have that motivation to do it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think this is definitely something to look at. I never considered mobile flight sims, and I'm sure some of you viewers watching didn't consider mobile flight sims, but here we go. We've got Infinite Flight, maybe something to check out, maybe something worth actually having a look at. I was impressed with the HUD, the intuitive nature. You'd think that using your yoke or your tablet as a yoke would be a bit strange, but it actually works really well. So definitely well done on that, and I think I might actually check this out. Thank you very much, Jason, for your time.
My pleasure. Yeah, thank you. And if you want to find out more, you can go to infiniteflight.com, and you can find us on the App Store and Google Play, as well as on social media at Infinite Flight.
Brilliant, and I'll put that link in the description box to infiniteflight.com.
Okay.
Okay, so we've covered Infinite Flight, so that's a brand new, well, I say brand new, it's not really brand new, but it is a new type of game/simulator for mobile phones. We've covered a brand new sim on computers, or a game on computers with Deadstick. What we should do next is talk about hardware and what you can actually get from hardware. So the next one I want to talk about is Fulcrum simulator controls, and they have a new yoke that should be coming out within the next couple of months. I spoke to them last year. They were very, very lovely, very kind to actually take the time out to talk to me, give me a chance to mess around with the yoke for quite a while and really get a good feel for it. I managed to see them again this year, sat down, and I have to say that last year they had a yoke that was in a prototype stage, which I felt was good. It had a few little niggling issues. I sat down with this yoke on a couple of Saturdays ago. I sat down with the yoke, and immediately all those little issues that I thought I might have had, with the rest position on the thumb. In fact, you can see on the Duchess right now, if I've got this synced up properly, you can actually see the yoke on the Duchess. You can just see at the top where the areas where your thumb can sort of rest. That area last year I found on the prototype was a little bit a little bit too sharp, a little bit too high, and for my hands, which aren't that large, it would be quite difficult to rest your thumbs on that for a significant period of time. It would actually cause my fingers to hurt or anything like that, or the actual area between my thumb and my index finger, that part would strain quite badly. I sat down with the current new setup, and immediately I felt that issue's gone. It felt perfect, and I genuinely mean it felt perfect. The thumb positions were perfect, the controls were easy to reach. When I was using the actual controls, the column itself felt natural, felt realistic. It was smooth, you didn't feel any sort of jaggedness or anything like that. It felt smooth, it translated perfectly into the sim, 1-to-1, and it gave you a very, very realistic feeling of flying an actual aircraft. Did it feel like something that was heavy enough to fly on a jet? No, but then again, looking at the way it was in that current configuration, it felt like it was perfect for a light aircraft. And in addition to that, with the idea of the modularity, what's going to happen is that you'll be able to take off that yoke and replace it with another yoke, and that's going to give you maybe a larger yoke, something suitable for a jet with a few more buttons, things like that. So it's brought in a whole new idea of being able to take a single product and swap out certain parts of that product to give you the experience that you require. And of course, they're not going to stop here. They have intentions to go ahead and go past the yoke and go into a throttle quadrant and rudders and just get your whole flight system. This flight system is designed to be for those who are going from starter kits, who have said, yes, I know what I'm doing in Flight Simulator now. I want something more realistic. I want something that is a higher quality. And this product firmly sits in that bracket. Still within the affordable range, but of a higher quality. So I would say you've got your CH products, you've got your Cytec or Logitech products, and indeed we're going to have later on in the interview your Honeycomb products. And then the next step up from those products, you've got, at the moment there's nothing there. You sort of jump into from your £200 or whatever £300 products, you jump into £1,000 products and something like that, 800, 900, 1,000. There's a market gap there. That is where this one comes in. However, it felt incredibly good. I would say that this felt like it is of a higher quality than what the price tag states. And it's not easy to impress me with these kind of things. I do nitpick, as you guys know, but it was very hard for me to find any particular flaw with this product. The only issue that I had is that due to the nature of the product, the box sort of that actually contains all its equipment, all the wiring, all the boards and whatever, circuit boards, and the actual column itself, giving it the motion, is rather long due to the size of the column. You don't want something sticking out the back or anything like that. So that was my only concern, but because that's generally because of the nature of the product, there isn't too much that can be done with that. However, everything else, it just felt absolutely perfect. So I now have an interview with the CEO of Fulcrum Simulator Controls. Hopefully you'll enjoy this interview. He's flying the aircraft, or he's flying an aircraft using his controls, and you can just see sort of how he's gone about doing this and what you can expect, when you can expect it, and just how much has changed by what I said to them. Is that I said that you've changed many small things, and that's made a big change, and that is literally what they've done over the course of a year. This is now a product that is ready to go to market. Right, with Fulcrum Simulator Controls, and Chris is here once again. He was here last year, or I'd say he was here, I was here, and he was here. And we've come a long way over the past year with the actual control, the yoke that you've been developing. So, what's changed, and how has it changed? In which ways?
Okay, let's start. A lot has changed. Visually, you can see it's quite a bit different. This is now a production ready item, so this is the finished product. We've gone from 3D printed prototype to cast aluminium yoke, steel shaft, all steel construction, mechanism, springs, bearings inside, all steel. So big improvement there. The yoke itself, we've finalised the specs on it now. So we've got 8 inches of pitch travel, floats backwards, full 90 degrees each way. It's silky smooth. A lot of work has gone into miniaturisation as well. So last year the prototype was quite a big bulky box.
Right, yeah.
We've actually targeted the Cytec dimensions height-wise.
Okay.
So if you've got an existing panel, it will slide straight in. An awful lot of work has been put into the ergonomics of the yoke as well.
Okay.
Again, iterative process, but design changes, 3D print, test, multiple subjects testing it to make sure it fits various hand types. And then once we got to a final design that we were happy with, started production. So this is a production sample.
Right.
It is how the finished product will be when it comes to market.
I mean, with that, I tried it out earlier, and earlier on I found that it's a lot better than sort of if I was to, let's say, sit in a Cytec product or something. Then what would happen is I found myself feeling that I'm flying an aircraft, but it felt still a bit gamey. With this, I have to say that it felt like a real aircraft. In a sense, it felt like a light aircraft. It felt there was a weight to there was an actual weight to the actual controls. When I was turning it, it was responding exactly as I was expecting it to respond, and for all intents and purposes, it felt real. So with all of that, I mean, I suppose that goes into, like you said, the smaller changes that you've made over the past year. One of the things that you did was I've noticed that your thumb positioning, it seems to have moved, and it just makes it a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
So was that a really long iterative process to do that?
So the design has been an iterative process, ergonomically and mechanism as well.
Right.
The ergonomics, we got a lot of feedback from last year. A lot of people tried it, varying hand size, they all had lots of comments.
Yep.
Tried to incorporate most of them, and we think we're there. We're a design now that does suit most hand types. It is very comfortable. You can just sit.
Yeah, I mean, I tried it and I can agree that it did feel very easy to get a good, comfortable grip on it without having to force your fingers into maybe a position that you know that it's going to start hurting very soon. So that's really good.
A lot of work was done around that because some people expect to fly like that. I'm learning to fly, and all of my flying is one-handed.
Right.
Hand on throttle.
Yes.
And a lot of the time you can even just be fingertips. So the design of the yoke allows you to do that. You can grip it or fingertip or one-handed. It doesn't feel alien to do any of those things.
It's quite versatile in that regard. Well, speaking of you're focusing on this particular yoke, I remember you saying last year that you wanted to do a fairly modular system where you can swap out the yoke for another yoke in the future, should this go well, and if you've got the market for it for other types of yokes, not just this one, which this one seems more general aviation related, although it's also got a bit of things that could potentially be used for jets, but you want perhaps different types of yokes, modularity. How easy would it be to swap out a yoke?
It's the matter of one bolt. So yeah, you're right. The design of this is sort of general aviation based with a nod to transport aircraft. So you've got the multiple trim options.
Yep.
But we are still planning on releasing an airliner yoke next.
Okay.
It's a simple, can't really see it, it's a single bolt on the back, Allen key. You can do that, and the yoke itself just pulls off. So it's a multi-pole connection between the shaft and the yoke.
Yep.
It's literally just one off, another
Put
one
it back
off,
on.
tighten it up.
So when we're thinking about this, is a lot like we were discussing earlier, sort of the quick release steering wheels, but without the actual quick release mechanism, because that's quite bulky and quite clunky to use.
Very much so. It is very analogous to a racing wheel, or sim racing setups where you are changing the wheel depending on the car type. This yoke will do everything. It feels fine. It feels not out of place in an airliner or a GA, but if you want to specialise, the next one we've got coming to market is an airliner yoke.
Okay.
After that, it will depend on demand. It just depends. We'll get community feedback. We'll see what the demand is.
So, with regards to the current yoke, I believe that the current system, the full, obviously the full yoke system, you're looking at, I think you said December time.
Yes.
As a plan.
We want this out before Christmas.
Okay.
So
and
I can't give you a definite date, but we are focusing before Christmas. So within 2 months, hopefully.
Right. So within 2 months, and also then, how long, perhaps for the airliner yoke, are you? Or is that going to be waiting on demand first?
That's a slightly harder question because we are working on a throttle quadrant at the moment.
Okay, that's good.
That will be a 6-channel throttle, so whether it's used for airline operations or twin piston. So it's fitting it around that.
Right, okay.
So I don't want to give dead timelines on any of those because we're still going to get this to market. But yes, it's on the way. It'll be next year sometime.
But I mean, the great thing is that you're already working on something new. So you've finished this one, or this one's ready to go, and you go, right, what's the next logical step? Well, a throttle quadrant or a jetliner one. So there is a future waiting for this, which is really good news.
And there's still the driving force behind this is like, I'm still a simmer.
Yes.
And I'm still wanting to make products that I will use. The driving force behind this originally was to make the ultimate yoke for use.
And do you think do you feel like you've achieved that goal? You feel like the yoke that you've made is?
It's tough to get across how smooth this feels. You really do need to try it to get that.
I mean,
I think this is probably.
I think
product in the market. It's got more travel than any other desktop yoke.
Right. Yep.
Travel. It's silky smooth. There is 0 sense of detent. And you've got the modular aspect.
I mean, with that, you're completely right, because I mean, I tried it out myself, and I found that it was incredibly smooth. I took it into a few steep banks very quickly. I didn't feel like it was catching on anything. I went through its full range of motion, pushed it all the way in, pulled it all the way out, got a good feel for it. It felt like it was it felt like it was gliding through it, and that's really, really nice, which is exactly what the real aircraft would feel like, general aviation.
All the things were taken into account. So in the early stages, I literally went through the hangar measuring the amount of travel on different yokes.
Okay.
And then the key things with this were 0 to 10. It must be silky smooth, and it's got to have a realistic amount of travel. I think we're there. It feels fluid. It's the right sort of weighting. It doesn't crease as the channel moves.
I suppose the last real question for you is, or two questions, is one, compatibility. X-Plane, prepared,
you name it. So
Aerofly FS2.
Exactly. I mean, we've got those on the website showing compatibility. It appears as a standard Windows controller.
Yep.
So plug in the USB and it's there.
So
Windows,
standard plug and play.
Windows, but you name it. It'll work on Mac or Linux. It's standard.
Fantastic. So
HID device.
truly universal.
Yeah.
And lastly is who is this product targeting? So thinking about price ranges, who are you targeting? Is it the entry level, enthusiast, or really high end? Where are you trying to market this?
Well, we would see this as sort of enthusiast level, so there's no reason why you can't come in at this price point.
Yep.
We're looking at hopefully 429, including VAT. It's likely to be a progression from earlier products, cheaper products.
Yep.
It's actually, dimension-wise, will fit into the Cytec panel.
Right.
So anybody with existing cockpits, it's the same height as the Cytec / Logitech. Yeah. It is priced for an enthusiast, so it's going to be serious about flight sim, but that doesn't mean it's not a high quality yoke. I would put this against any yoke in the market, irrespective of price.
Fantastic. So you're really looking at someone who's maybe been in flight simulation for maybe a few years and thinks, you know what, I really enjoy this. I want to start upgrading my gear. Fulcrum simulator controls. This is where you're going to get one of your top quality yokes.
You want the most realistic feeling desktop yoke without going into force feedback and many thousands. I think we're there. I don't think there's anything else out there that in the market where this sits.
Fantastic. Well, there you have it. That's Fulcrum Simulator Controls. I'll put a link to their website in the description box. You can check them out. I have to say, I have tried a few yokes today, and this was probably my favourite. And you see on this video, there's a couple of interviews with different manufacturers, different yokes, but this one was definitely my favourite and definitely felt the most realistic. So I think well done to you, Chris, and your team for building it, for getting it done. And also, thank you very much for the interview. And hopefully, I wish you the best on your next yoke and the throttle quadrant. Let's see what comes up next year.
We'll definitely be here.
Well, we'll take a bit of a break from the interviews for a while now, and I'm going to talk about a few things that I saw in and around the area that I don't have interviews for or about, but I want to talk a little bit about them. For example, first of all, VATSIM. VATSIM have a new system coming out. As a matter of fact, this video goes out the day I'm intending it to go out. That should be either that new system is being implemented either today or tomorrow, if this is going out on the day that I'm intending. So this new system is going to have much better audio. It's far more realistic. It's got all the correct blocks and things like that. I spoke to one of the VATSIM developers, or one of the VATSIM PR agents, and they said to me, they explained to me all the changes that are going through, what they've done to it, how it's going to improve communications on a VATSIM for pilots that are on the VATSIM server. So the way the client side communication is received, the way the server sends the communications, and just how much better it is and how much better it is going to be for a pilot. Now, one of the things that always switched me off sort of flying on VATSIM is that it seemed to be garbled. A number of times I've heard people on YouTube, I've heard them, and some of them are clear, and I thought that's good, but other times you just get a lot of garbled speech, and I thought that for me, who doesn't have much time to fly and has to make YouTube videos, I can't make a YouTube video and have an entire communication that's garbled and then do it again and again and again. You just can't do it again and again. So I was always against actually flying on VATSIM for that particular reason. It seems like that is going to be massively lessened now, and I am actually very interested in doing streams and flying live on VATSIM. So you should expect perhaps very soon for me to start flying on VATSIM, and you'll be able to join me and we'll be able to do some flights and streams online. I spoke about communications coverage, which towers are going to be controlled. They explained to me about events and how they managed to get events all the way from the ground all the way up, every level. So you've got ground, clearance delivery, tower, approach, you've got the airspace above it, center, whatever it is. You've got all of those airspaces from start to the end, which is really exciting, because I was looking a little bit into this, and I was wondering how this is going to work. And one of the things they said as well is that it's great when YouTubers or streamers do this, because what happens is that sometimes, and admittedly this is something that would happen all the time, you're flying a route and it's fairly empty, and that wouldn't feel great. I mean, that's how we fly in the sim at the moment, that's how I fly, so it's an empty route. However, if you were a streamer like myself, or a content creator, let's say I'm flying and I'm streaming, what will happen is there'll be a viewer that might think, oh, let me jump onto that flight as well, and they'll come in behind me, or there might be someone that goes in front of me, or something like that, and suddenly you've got a hub of people, or you're the hub, and there are people being attracted to you, and you've got this entire area now full of aircraft, which is a win-win situation. It really is a win-win situation, both sides. VATSIM have people, that makes it more active, then people will be looking at VATSIM and thinking, where are the areas that are active? Oh yeah, there, and we'll put more people in. Then the people that are flying it enjoy it, because they're having to navigate traffic, and air traffic controllers having to actually do a job. The controllers enjoy it, because it's not just 1 or 2 aircraft, now you're talking about 15, 20, 30 aircraft, maybe even more. And as a streamer, I would enjoy it, because I am now having to actually put additional skills into actually flying the aircraft. I'm having to navigate other aircraft myself, which is really, really cool. So VATSIM have this new system that's going out, their new audio system. I'm extremely interested. I think I'm going to be doing things on VATSIM, and if you haven't signed up to VATSIM and you want to take your sort of your experience to the next level, I do recommend you do sign up to VATSIM and see what you can do and how you can actually communicate with air traffic control, real air traffic controllers. I say real, obviously they're in the sim, some of them are probably real air traffic controllers, but to communicate with them and actually add more to your flight simulation. Speaking of adding more to your flight simulation, virtual airlines, there are dozens, hundreds of them, but I've always followed virtual airlines. I actually was considering signing up to one at some point in the past, but I didn't actually have the time or the know-how actually to do so. The one that I was looking at signing up to many years ago was BA Virtual, and I had the opportunity to speak with one of the captains at BA Virtual. So the next interview is going to be with him, and he's going to run us through why would you join a virtual airline, what a virtual airline does, and just how does it add to the flight simulation experience. What is it that these things do that just add to that experience, make it a lot better, a lot more enjoyable overall to actually fly in the flight simulation environment, and how does it even relate to real life flying? So the next interview, as I said, is with BA Virtual, who are actually going to be celebrating 20 years very soon, so congratulations to them, and let's get straight on with the interview. So, virtual airlines. Now, a lot of you have heard about virtual airlines, but the question is, why would you join a virtual airline, and what does a virtual airline do? Well, I am here with Lee James from BA Virtual, and he's going to talk a little bit about what BA Virtual does and why you should actually join a virtual airline. So, first of all, hello. And congratulations on 20 years. I think your 20th anniversary is coming up.
20 years next year. Thank you.
Absolutely fantastic. I've been following you for a very long time. I've seen you guys grow, as you said, and as we were speaking earlier, you said that there's been a number of changes, and you're a much wider community now.
Yeah, we're in our 4th incarnation of the virtual airline. We had a legal agreement with British Airways for many years. That changed not so long ago, so we basically now no longer use their brands to avoid copyright infringement.
Right.
Got our own brand up, but essentially we still mirror their schedules. Yeah, you were asking about why a virtual airline, what a virtual airline
Why
does.
would you do that?
Many people in the flight simulation community get into flight sim, they enjoy it, they become good at it. Some of them may want to go on to a real career in it, and they reach a point in their simulation where they ask themselves, what next? What do I do now? Where do I go? Is there anything that can help me advance without having to actually go and cough up the money to do the real thing yet?
Yeah.
Virtual airlines or organisations, 99% of them are free, cost you nothing at all to join, but they provide an option to fill that gap. They provide a goal, and depending on how far you want to go, you could go into the full commercial environment and become a fully full-fledged IFR pilot. We offer training to do that. We're the only VATSIM organisation that's rated for all 5 disciplines. And British Airways Virtual can do something like that. You can provide a goal for you. There are over 200 virtual airlines on the internet, and their framework just allows the flight simmer to advance his abilities, to take the next step, to go as high as he really wants. You can do anything from bush flying in Alaska, to cargo flying overnight over Russia, to flying commercially, short haul and long haul, around the world like we do. So virtual airlines fill that gap.
So it's really the opportunities and the possibilities are really endless depending on the virtual airline you pick. So with yourselves, you said that you mirror the BA schedule, so I'm assuming...
we essentially mirror the operations of British Airways as far as we're able to and within the limitations of flight simulation. So you could take a flight from London to, say, Innsbruck, fly the BA flight, we provide the routes, we help you flight plan. You can go online on VATSIM and fly live if you really want to, or you can fly offline. We support FS9, FSX, X-Plane and Prepare 3D, so lots of options for the simulators in those genres. And you can take it as real as it gets. But we provide training abilities for pilots to take that next step and to go into the environment that possibly they might be looking for. We've got a wonderful community, a really good, vibrant forum. Many actual real airline pilots are members of our organisation, and they're on the training team. A really good board of directors that are moving the VA in the right way. And we provide a framework, as do many other virtual airlines, to help the flight simulator go up from just the back bedroom flying experience.
And really, like you said, having actual airline pilots who are on your network, who are part of the team, trainers, things like that, that also adds adds to that experience as well, because now you're being trained in real world standard operating procedures or checklists, normal procedures, things like that. You're being trained by pilots who go through this day in, day out, or have done.
If you want to go into the commercial aviation business yourself, if that's your aim, then we can be of some help. We can give you a good grounding on the way. Myself, the story's a bit different. I got into aviation too late to do anything about it as a career. I was too old, I'm 63 now. But now, thanks to British Airways Virtual and flight simulation and the realism that we have nowadays, I can have an airline career that I can have on my days off and enjoy it. And it's as real as any of the guys that I talk to every day in my day job.
And that satisfaction also to be able to be on that same level as those pilots and everything. We're talking about the same thing. We understand what's going on. We understand the limitations of aircraft, routes, things like that, and complain about the same things.
And there's a great bunch of people, a bunch of friendly people out there, as I'm sure you'll find at the show when you walk around today.
Fantastic. So, BA Virtual, one of the many virtual airlines out here, but 20 years, I mean, that shows something that it's been going for a very long time, which means there must be something really good about it. I'm partial to British Airways anyway, so if I'm going to join a virtual airline, I'll probably end up joining yourselves. Thank you very much for your time, Lee.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So virtual airlines, that's something that I am going to be looking more closely at. I might end up joining BA Virtual at some point. I need to see what sort of aircraft they fly and things like that, and what sort of time I can put into it. But that's going to be really, really interesting, trying to fly the real routes, or as close as you can get to the real routes, and having a schedule and so on and so forth. So I definitely want to do something like that. But of course, if you're doing that, you need to ensure that I suppose you don't have to, but you want to ensure that things like your hardware is up to scratch, and you've got your computer specs up to scratch, and you know what you're doing. So in terms of knowing what you're doing in terms of hardware, we spoke earlier about Fulcrum simulator controls and how they are bridging a gap in the market, trying to give yourselves a high quality product, but for a price that is less than your £1,000 controls and things like that. Something that's a step up from your entry level, but has the quality of the high level. Now, this seems to be a trait that is being translated into a number of companies trying to develop controls. They're trying to get better quality, but for the sort of cheaper price. And Honeycomb Aeronautical are literally doing this. So they have a new set of controls out. They have their yokes that are already available. They're going to have controls for your throttle quadrants. So they actually have a number of different variants. I saw a single engine variant, I saw a dual engine variant, and I saw a jets variant of these throttle quadrants. So they've got these new bits of hardware, new bits of kit out, and their idea is fairly similar, but not in the same sort of price range. So whilst Fulcrum is the sort of step up, Honeycomb want to be the step in. So alongside your Logitech products, Cytec, and alongside your CH products, which both of them have been around for a very, very long time, Honeycomb felt like they could do something better, and that's what they have attempted to do. And you're going to see in this interview with the CEO what kind of things they want to do, how they've approached it, and what kind of products they offer, and for what sort of price. And I can tell you now that compared to the products that we've had on the market before for this price range, the Honeycomb Aeronautical products are vastly superior. It's a very, very nice product to fly with, and it's very comfortable. So here's an interview with the CEO. Hopefully you guys will enjoy this. It was a little bit loud in the background. I did try my best, and I am going to try later on to try and get another interview with the CEO or someone from Honeycomb if that's possible. Enjoy the interview. So I'm here with Honeycomb Aeronautical, and they've got a new range of sort of simulator gear, simulator products. We're talking yokes, we're talking throttle quadrants, we're talking autopilot systems, switches, displays, things like that. So first of all, what is Honeycomb Aeronautical, and where did you get your ideas of what you wanted to do?
Well, I saw that there was a massive gap in the market for quality simulator equipment that was priced at £1,000 or higher. So I challenged myself to come up with a range of products that was really high quality at an affordable price point where everybody could actually afford to buy it, and found out that it's very, very easy to make a $1,000 yoke that's really good, but it's very, very difficult to make a $250 yoke that's really, really good. So that was our big challenge. It's been 2 years now, over 2 years now in development. It's finally out. The first shipments are coming out right now. So and it's been the reviews have been excellent. So we're really, really thankful for that. But you know, now that's just the first step on our roadmap. What we wanted to do is complete, create a whole cockpit solution. So not just the yoke, but later on with the throttle that can be worked with any type of aircraft. And then further on with a modular cockpit system where you'll have your flight displays, your radios, your rudder pedals and so on, all in kind of a hybrid design form like we have here, where it can be used both as a general aviation product but also as a commercial setup.
Right, okay, fantastic. Now I also see that it says it's made by aerospace engineers and pilots, so I'm assuming you've got a lot of feedback from pilots in terms of how you need things designed, how you want things to look. I mean, if I just move my camera slightly to this part here, you can quite clearly see that there is essentially what looks to be a yoke that looks like a throttle quadrant that looks like it's off a 737. So it's a very high quality there. The challenges of actually developing something of such a high quality for such a cheap price, I'm presuming that there's been a lot of research that's had to go into that kind of material that you use.
Well, what I did was, instead of trying to figure out everything myself, I actually worked with experts in the business. So I'm a pilot myself.
Right.
So that's my baseline. And so instead of trying to figure out everything myself, I used people that I knew in the aviation industry to help me. So all the mechanical parts inside is made by a company in Sacramento that makes several $100,000 flight simulators that's approved for flight training. So they developed the mechanical part for me. The industrial design is a combination between the general aviation aircraft and the commercial aircraft. So size-wise, it's somewhere between a 737 and a Beechcraft. and the functionality is somewhere in the middle of what you find in a private jet.
Right.
So we try to make something of a high caliber thing. We are used to an industrial designer that actually has an aerospace degree.
Right.
We also have some understanding of what my requirements were. And then the whole ergonomics was set with actually play models. Because if you look at how a pilot will hold the yoke,
It thinks you're a salesman.
Two fingers.
It thinks you're a salesman.
Hand grip.
Yep.
If you are a simmer, you typically hold it with two hands. And so the grip is very different. Make that economically work so that we can have it work for both demographics. It's very important to us. So it's really more about understanding who your consumer is and tailor the product to that. But for us, it's really important to hit that sub $250 price point so that it's affordable for both people.
So you're looking at trying to get a mid-range price point, but as high quality as you can get for that mid-range price point.
That's exactly what we're trying to do. Yeah.
That's really good, because for someone like me, that would probably be ideal. It's got a small form, high quality, but it doesn't cost thousands and thousands of pounds.
Yeah. Look, if we were just creating another 1,000-pound yoke, there wouldn't really be that hype around it. It's just because there's plenty of players in that market, so we're not really interested in this. There has in the lower price point, there hasn't been any innovation or new products in the last 15 years. I think it's been almost 15 years since Cytec came out with their yoke, and it's been even longer since CH came out with theirs. So it was time to come up with something new in the market that has, using modern technology and evolutionary technology, so that it's like, if you have the opportunity, you have to buy a new car. Would you buy a brand new 20-year-old BMW, or would you buy a brand new BMW, right?
Yep.
That's kind of where we're at. So it's not that Cytec or Logitech now necessarily makes bad products. It's just technology-wise, it's been outdated.
Right, yeah. And last question is that I know that the yoke is currently out. The throttle quadrant, I believe, is it still in development, or?
It's in final development. So the industrial design, as you see it here, is the final design.
Right.
But we still have some adjustment to make on just the feel of the throttle. Since we showed it last time, we've added an adjustment for the tension.
Right.
So you can adjust the tension. We made the handle slightly bigger. So just to have the right feel. Right now you can feel that it's not linear when you feel it, and that's just because it's a handmade sample. So once we have those dialed in, and we can sign off on the tooling, it takes about 6 months to bring it to market. Brilliant. That's where we're at right now.
So we're probably thinking sometime mid-2020 or somewhere around that?
Yeah, I would say second quarter of 2020, this should be out.
That sounds good. Well, thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing more of your products.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I can't go much further without talking about the people who actually invited me to this place in the first place. JustFlight. We all know JustFlight's products. That's why I'm flying the Duchess at the moment. It's my favourite product from JustFlight, and that's exactly why I'm flying it. We know what JustFlight are capable of. We know what they do. What we don't know is how much effort goes into doing this. So, not only do I have an interview with JustFlight, I was in one of the presentations, and there's a little bit to talk about the presentation, so that's what I'm going to do. You're going to see little clips of it on the screen. They were talking about a number of things with it. They were talking about the history and how far they've come, and you can see a massive progression over the past, particularly 10 years, in the flight simulation genre. But they were talking about the new products that they have, the Boeing 747 Classic, which looks incredible. They started going in depth in the presentation as to how you go about developing one of these. How do you do the systems? How do you go ahead and build these things up? You got to start with System X, System Y, System Z. How do you get this avionics working? Do you work with the engines first? Do you work with the autopilot first? Do you work with, what do you work with? So they went through all of this, and it just shows the amount of detail they have to put in, and the amount of detail that's gone into this particular aircraft, where things are not just there and do not just happen for the sake of it. They are there because the simulator is reading something and coming out with some sort of calculation that says, yes, now make this thing happen, which is great. It's not just something that's there for eye candy, or just there to go, oh look, that button lights up, oh look, that looks real. It's not faked, it's actually simulated correctly, which is brilliant. In addition to that, they had another part of the presentation that was about traffic. Is it Traffic Global for X-Plane? That's something I need to try out. It's going to add real-world traffic to the best of their capabilities into X-Plane, and just as a note here, there's a number of things that they went through. I am going to, if the videos come out nicely, I am going to put that part of the video up, because it's very important to note some of the things that they said, and that is that it's going to be realistic, not real. So one of the things that he did say, the developer did say, is that it's not a matter of being able to go onto Flight Radar 24 and going, oh, there's a plane coming in, I'm going to watch it in X-Plane. That doesn't happen. What does happen is you will expect to see populated areas as they should be, with minimal frame drop. So that's what comes up on this. In addition to that, I did have an interview with Martin, and that was a fantastic interview once again, talking about looking at their past products, going into the future, what they've done, how they've done it, and even a little bit about sort of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and if they've been just thinking about it. And great news, they're always thinking about the future, and just thinking about how that's going to play out and how things are going to change, but also their current market. Why X-Plane 11? What's their response been? And what do they want to do in the future? Great news, they want to try and slowly bring each product into X-Plane 11. I cannot wait for the 111. Anyway, going to go on to the little bit of the interview with them, and also with Martin, and the little bit of the presentation, so I hope you enjoy this.
Yeah, we have landed. We're still taxiing in, and don't talk to me about taxiing around busy airports at the moment. It's great to see so many people here interested in Robin 747. I'll be talking about Traffic Global and why it's different for X-Plane than for P3D in particular. Some of the design choices that went into it, certainly, what you can expect it to do, and I also want to talk briefly about what you shouldn't expect it to do. Certainly based on some of the questions that we've been getting on social media and on the floor this morning, they seem to indicate that there are two very different kinds of expectations out there. So we're focused very much on one, really not so much on the other, and I just want to get that sort of clear so that people know what they're talking about. Very, very quick introduction to me. I've been doing flight sim design and development since the 90s on the early versions of flight sim. Mostly for fun, and I've mostly worked on tools rather than the sort of public-facing side of it. They have been used commercially on a few occasions, but now I do it more and more commercially myself. Until a few years ago, my main day job was completely unrelated to flight sims. I was a Unix system administrator, database administrator, which fully allows me to play with what I love doing, which is making complicated things go quickly, which is kind of relevant for this. A few years ago, I worked for Dovetail Games on the ill-fated Flight Sim world. They licensed my mission editor for that, so I did a lot of work on there, a lot of work on the SimConnect API and the mission system, which was never really publicised as much as I felt it ought to have been, certainly. And now, as you said, you found someone mad enough to try and take on doing traffic across the entire planet in real time. So, Traffic Global for X-Plane, what does it do? Well, it's about talking to the X-Plane world and filling it full of traffic, as you can see from the screenshot there. Well, we did have a little bit of video, but PowerPoint has tripped me up. So just as a quick aside, if you'd like to see it running, please just drop over to the JustFlight stand. It is running on one of the PCs down there. We are not just photoshopping these out, honest. So we are trying to make sure that any airport you visit will have as much traffic as we can shoehorn into it based on real-world airlines real work schedules, and it does it in real time on demand. There's no extensive setup or anything like that. What is it not? We're going to talk about briefly as well, as I said. And I will go into a little depth on how does it work. Not the technicalities as such, but certainly some of the design decisions and why we decided to go down one route rather than the other, which is why, as I was saying, there are two distinct types of product. And I will do some questions later on once everyone's finished. If there's not enough time or you want to ask something especially detailed, then please just drop over to the JustFlight stand on the main floor. So, X-Plane doesn't really do that much in the way of AI. It's a fantastic simulation system, it's incredibly accurate, but the AI that's there is really a token thing to show that there are some aircraft around. But if you go to a large airport, busy airport, it's just a bit sparse, it's a bit thin. They're not based on real airlines, they are... Yeah, I will go back to that. They're not based on particularly real-world airlines, and it just looks a bit thin. So the footnote that I just put up, the star on the top, what we're aiming for is realistic, not real, and that's really the key difference. Realistic being, does the airport look like it probably ought to? Yes. Is it real? Can you check Flight Radar 24 and watch the plane that just landed arriving? No, you can't. And that's design, and I will come back to that shortly. So the AI that we have, and at a busy airport like Heathrow or LAX, there may be several hundred, many hundreds on screen. They're all simulated individually, not nearly in so much detail as a 747, I will admit, but we are simulating 600-700 aircraft at a time in real time, and obviously that doesn't allow for that level of detail. They will follow appropriate routes around airports where they can. They often manage to taxi around each other. Yeah, it's difficult. Well, one of the key things in this is that it works with any airport you have. It's not pre-designed routes, it's not tied to this airport and then an add-on for that airport and an add-on for that airport. It will work with anything, whether it's native X-Plane, commercial, freeware, anything you like. That means that it has no idea what it's going to come across until it actually gets there. And that makes that a little more tricky. As they are taxiing around, they will always give you, the pilot, priority, basically because it's kind of rude, and also because you're a completely unpredictable human, that they have no idea what you're going to do next. So if one of the AI aircraft sees you coming out, moving onto a taxiway, less so on approach, they will do their best to get out of your way. And we do have optional collision detection. Very optional. Now, the next thing that we're likely to be asked about, and I'm going to anticipate one of the questions here, is that this is going to slow things down, surely. Like, well, it does, to some extent, but not nearly so much as you might be expecting. As I said at the start, my background is all in sort of high performance, parallel processing, that kind of stuff. And this is all done extremely multi-threaded. So if there's anyone in the room who has a single core processor, I'm afraid you're out of luck. But for everyone else, this will make full use of whatever processing abilities you have. The X-Plane frame rate at a busy airport with 200 plus aircraft on screen, yes, you'll notice a drop. I think that's kind of fair, but it's not nearly so much a bigger drop as you would expect from having 200 visible aircraft. This is obviously something that we've been very aware of all the way through development, all the way through the sort of pre-announcement stuff on social media. Certainly the beta team leapt on this straight away. And about the one thing the beta team haven't complained about is the performance. So I'm hopeful. We also have full 3D sound. They're not just static aircraft, so you will get the engine noises, obviously. Those are taken directly, as are a lot of the models, all the models, from the P3D, the prepared version of Traffic Global. And yes, they are running inside X-Plane. I have read very positive things about the sound in the P3D version, so all those sounds are taken across here verbatim, and as a nice bonus for the X-Plane users, we have additional sounds, so things that P3D doesn't allow for, mechanical noises, tyre screech, that kind of stuff. All of that is added, so you can follow one of these aircraft down onto the runway, you'll hear the flaps coming up, you'll hear the thrust reversers, you'll hear the tyre screech, all of that. It sounds like a small detail, but the first time I switched that on after it was written, it made such a big difference being able to follow an aircraft in, listen to it get to the stand, the engines spool down. It's surprisingly immersive for something that I thought would be, you know, required, certainly, but not that big a deal. It's a bigger deal than I thought it would be. So, numbers, what do we have? Is that going to move on? We doing anything? Yes, there we go. So, the traffic database as it stands, and it is using a static database, is serving more than 3,000 airports, 600,000 plus flights in the database, and 800 plus active liveries. The pluses are on there because at the moment it is still changing, it's ticking up as I find small problems with aircraft naming and things like that. But that should certainly be enough to keep most people going. As a very occasional GA pilot myself, the last thing I want to see is more traffic in the air, but apparently that's what the airline crew want. So that's what we've got, and it's actually been a surprisingly large part of the development. But I did a dev diary, which is on the Traffic Bubble website for a while, and I had an entire month's entry muttering darkly about processing the traffic database. It is alarmingly complicated, and I will spare you the details. If you'd like to know more, check the dev diary or come ask me on the stand, and I will rant about it for the rest of the afternoon, I promise. What else do we have? Yeah. X-Plane 11 airports. Any X-Plane 11 airport, whether it's X-Plane, Laminar Research, third party, freeware, whether it's come from the scenery gateway, it will be used. This is why some of the taxiing is A, complicated, and B, they will occasionally get themselves into places that they're not supposed to be. And this is actually one of the reasons why it's going to be out in a couple of weeks rather than out now, is because there were further problems pointed out to me just last week, and I simply haven't had time to fix them yet. It's a small problem, it should be fairly straightforward to fix, but when you're taxiing around an airport and you see two airliners head-to-head, it is incredibly visible. So we really, really want to fix that. Or at least improve it to the point where it's acceptable. As I said, realistically, we can't design the world's airports. I've said 3,000 plus airports there simply because that's where the traffic database that we have uses. If we had a different traffic database which flew to a lot more of the smaller airports, it would be using 11,000, 22,000 plus airports. If it's in X-Plane, it can in theory be used. And the database format that we're using, you might recognize if you've hopped the fence from FSX or P3D, we're using BGLs. I just love the idea of feeding a BGL into X-Plane. That tickled me when I came up with that. There was a very good reason for doing that, which was to try and minimize the development time. There is already, on release or very close to release, Traffic Global for P3D, and the idea was to share as many resources as possible. Why reinvent the wheel? That's why we're using P3D models, and that was originally why we were using the P3D BGL and front-end tools. That didn't turn out in the end. I suspect the X-Plane pilots are rather more discerning than some of the P3D pilots, let's say, because the grief I got over the traffic database was absolutely unbelievable, and there has been a lot of thought and head-scratching put into processing that. It should now be as busy as it can possibly be at any given airport, and in fact there's so much flights in there that the simulators airports simply can't take them all, and you'll only see a fraction of what's actually available. But they are real-world flights. They are about 3 weeks out of date at the moment. So that, as I said, is hopefully enough to keep most people going. We also, I've skipped ahead, additional liveries. Yes, they can be repainted. They are standard X-plane models. Because they're converted, you can't just drop in something that you've downloaded from one of the websites because there are custom animation controls in there. But they are standard XP11 models. You can repaint them if you like. You can add to them if you like, if you add your own schedules. And you can add your own schedules because it's BGL format. The tools are online. They're not supplied, unfortunately. That was part of the plan, but again, hasn't happened. But there are tools out there to edit and create your own BGLs should you wish to create your own schedules. So, as I said, I need to talk about what it doesn't do, because there are a few key things, and even out on the floor this morning, I've been asked the same questions time and time again. So, let's try and head those off now. It is not a real-world traffic monitor. It's one of the things that's come up so often. It's like, so can I go to flight radar and see that plane landing? No, sorry, you can't. There are several reasons for that. There are also certain limitations on accuracy. It is certainly not as detailed as the 747. The difference there is that is one aircraft that has taken a year plus to develop, I'm guessing. Yeah, that's a labour of love. We have 800 plus aircraft, not that many aircraft types, but there are 800 plus aircraft, 800 plus liveries. There just isn't time to put that much detail into them. The other thing there is that they are deliberately fairly low detail, because once you go from having one aircraft that you're flying to having potentially 200 plus on screen, if you've modelled it down to the rivet level, you know, you're going to be talking about seconds per frame, not frames per second. So they are quite consciously kept fairly simple. But as you can see from that screenshot, and that's from several months ago actually, they look decent. They're okay. They are the models from the P3D version. They are commercially, professionally designed models. But they won't be quite down to that level of detail. One of the questions we asked, and I'm well aware that the person who asked it may be in the room, this was on social media a few weeks ago. Someone nicely and helpfully pointed out that the colour of the VATSIM light on a particular model of aircraft from a particular airline was wrong. It was too red, it should be blue, because that airline had updated those aircraft to use LED lighting rather than incandescent. You go, well, that's great. Yeah, that person has put in huge amounts of time and effort to learn that level of detail. But we've got nearly 1,000 of the things. You know, it can't get that detailed. What we're really aiming for is to make the airports feel realistic. And it's back to the phrase that I had highlighted earlier, is to feel realistic, not to replicate what's happening in the real world, in a real airport, in real time. And because this is focused on airports, if you are planning on flying along with an aircraft as it travels from London to New York, it's a fairly simple route that they're doing. The key there is that there's only so much your PC is able to handle at a time. And it's really at the airports that we're aiming at. It's at the airports that all of the intricate stuff happens. That's where the life is. If you're watching an airliner at 42,000 feet mid-Atlantic, yeah, so they will fly very simplified routes compared to real-world aircraft, but again, there's a limit on the amount of detail that can go in there without it really beginning to slow things down. The behaviour around airports, as I've suggested a couple of times, will be different. One of the beta testers, bless him, keeps on coming back to me and saying, but I know that airport, and they don't taxi down that taxiway, they use the next one along. That's great, you know, you know that airport. I applaud your level of detail and thank you for reporting it to me. Yeah, having someone telling me that level of detail is wonderful. But on the other hand, it's one bit of code. It's one horrifically complicated bit of code which is trying to handle, I think, 70 plus aircraft types across potentially an infinite number of airports, with an infinite number of taxi routes, with other aircraft moving, with the PCE pilot moving in and about the middle. It's going to behave differently. The key thing, though, is that it will use whatever definitions X-Plane provides.
So after being in the auditorium and going through JustFlight's, them going through their fantastic new products that are coming out, the Boeing 747 Classic on its way out, Traffic Global, and also looking at some of the other things that they get on with and the things that they do. One of the biggest ones, of course, being an X-Plane user, is Traffic Global. I mean, in the auditorium, it said that you were working on it, the ideas for it, for a very long time. Just how difficult has it been to actually get it into X-Plane, or has it been relatively easy compared to bringing it in from Prepared?
Yeah, although it's got the same name as the Prepared version, it's quite a different product really. It uses the same AI models and liveries. In terms of technology, it's quite different really. Obviously in Prepared and FSX we had a pretty good AI system, not great but it was there. But for X-Plane we've had to build it really from the ground up. Yeah. So all of the sits and stars, ground movements, the way the aircraft taxi and park, it's all has to be built from the ground up. So it's been a lot of work doing the X-Plane version.
Yeah, I can imagine so.
You've had to actually build up the AI system itself, as well as putting the AI content in there.
And how difficult has it been to actually build up that AI? I'm assuming that took a lot of time, just getting the AI working first before you could...
That's really the key to the product, yeah. The databases, the models, the liveries all came over from G3D. So that work was kind of largely done. So really the main bulk of the products for X-Plane was the coding and custom stuff.
Right, yeah.
Ground handling. That's been the main bit of work, really, yeah.
And in X-Plane, I use a lot of your GA aircraft. I find that your new Duchess 76, I said that I think that's the best GA aircraft I've ever flown in a sim. It's brilliant. But obviously behind you, you've got the Vulkan.
Yeah.
How's the development for the Vulkan going? And obviously I know normally you bring them out on the Microsoft platforms or the Microsoft-based ESP platforms first, and then X-Plane. So how's the development going for either of them?
Yeah, so the Prepared one is now available for Vulkan. X-Plane, we've not committed to it yet, but there's been a lot of interest this weekend in the X-Plane version of the Vulkan. So we'll consider it for sure.
Right.
Just trying to find the time really. It's busy with so many projects at the moment. We're trying to sort of fit it into the schedule.
Yeah.
But yeah, we want to see all of our Prepared aircraft get into X-Plane eventually.
And with that, I've just actually noticed there the 111. So I'm assuming that with all of them, you'd probably be looking at the 111 as well. Other aircraft like that. But I know that generally you tend to do a lot more general aviation propeller aircraft in X-Plane, and you've only done one jet. So I understand that's because of the conversion process, using jets and the modelling system for jets.
Part of it's kind of starting with the easy stuff really.
Right.
So trying to get a presence in the X-Plane market means that it was logical to start with the easier projects.
Yeah.
And that's naturally the GA and the Hawk was relatively simple for a jet. But now we've kind of got through those in a fairly quick time period. I think in 2 years, it'll be 2 years this month that we've been in X-Plane.
Okay.
And in that time we've released, I think, 9 aircraft. So now we're moving on to some of the bigger stuff.
Right, okay. So, that sounds really good. I mean, I think of those 9, I've probably got about 6 or 7 of them, which are really, really awesome aircraft. What I am curious about, though, with the latest aircraft that I saw, for example, the latest aircraft that I was given was the PA-38 Tomahawk. So I reviewed the Tomahawk, and you had a lot of extra features in it, you know, like the dangling keychain, or there was a lot of extra noises. Yeah. Would you ever be looking back to maybe upgrade your old aircraft to add some of those features in? For example, let's say my favourite is the Arrow 3. Yeah. So would you be looking back to go back to them and bringing an update out to add some of those features into it?
Yeah,
or is that
no firm plans at the moment, but we always do look back at upgrading the old ones. So now that X-Plane 11.4 is coming out soon, we'll be going back and revisiting all 9 of those aircraft to at least update all the flight dynamics, to take advantage of the latest X-Plane changes there. And when we do that kind of work, that's when we tend to then look at, is there anything we can bring across from the newer products back into the older ones.
And would you also be perhaps looking at in the future with X-Plane products, especially as they're now going to the Vulkan engine, and speaking to Laminar Research saying that their frame rate increases are substantial in certain areas, would you be looking at providing even higher resolution textures or being able to do it more with the physics, given that there is now that additional processing overhead available in X-Plane?
Yeah, we'll always look to take full advantage of what's available, really. So any time the developer releases an update, makes more features available, like 11.4, improves the flight dynamics, we'll always look to take advantage of those new features.
Superb.
Same with performance. If we can do more with Sim, we will.
Brilliant. That sounds awesome. And lastly, Flight Sim 2020. What are your very brief thoughts on it? And do you think that, given that the sort of interest that it's already gathered, do you think that JustFlight would immediately be wanting to make a presence should there be that modding availability, that add-on availability immediately?
Yeah, I mean, we'll go really where the customers go. So if the developers are interested in working with third parties and the community is interested in the platform, then we'll definitely be interested.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's still very early days. I'm not sure anyone's willing to commit to anything at this stage because it's pre-alpha. But yeah, if there's a good SDK there and the community is interested in this platform, then definitely. I mean, we're obviously one of the first prepared developers really to make a big presence in X-Plane and in Aerofly and for a short time FSW with apps releases. So I think we've got a proven track record with getting on fairly early onto new platforms.
Yeah, and I think that's also really helped you out because a number of comments I've received often praise you guys for the work that you've done, not just having it in prepared, but bringing it to X-Plane where other developers haven't.
Yeah.
So, first of all, it's really kudos to you guys that actually you've taken that step forward, and I know that the community really likes that.
Yeah.
But also, it's great to hear that you're always thinking of the future, always looking at how you can just improve every single day, as opposed to just stagnate and go, we're good here. So, really happy to hear something like that.
You've always got to be improving. You've got to be going where the community goes. If they've got interest in X-Plane, which probably about 3-4 years ago with these shows, a lot of people asking, are you doing X-Plane? Are you ever going to come to X-Plane? We can see the community going that way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a no-brainer, really. We've worked with the team from Franded Design on the X-Plane products, so they're a key part to get our products into X-Plane.
Wonderful. And lastly, I suppose, is what's next for JustFlight? You've got your 747 Classic coming out very soon.
Yep.
What's the next major project that you're looking at?
We've got lots. We've got obviously Traffic Global for X-Planes coming out now. 747 coming out soon. We've got the 146 in development, the Vulkan F28 in development.
Nice.
We've just announced at the show an A300 B4, one of the early ones. And then on the back of all of these aircraft, we're planning on doing other variants. So from the Vulkan F28, we'll go to the 1700 probably.
Right.
From the A300, probably the A310, Beluga maybe. From the 146 to the Avro RJ. So I'm trying to look for popular airliners that we can then take the existing model and do a newer version, do extra variants.
And gives you a much wider variety of aircraft to fly.
Obviously there's a lot of work involved in researching and starting these aircraft.
Yeah.
So ideally if we can get good life out of them. Same with 747. We've got the 100, 200, 200 freighter initially, but we've also been working on the 300s, the SP, the E4B, and the DC-25, which is the Air Force One.
Right, yeah.
So again, kind of variants of the 747.
It just gives a lot of people different things to play with, whilst trying to keep your workload as minimal as possible. Given that I know, and some of you guys might not know this, but literally JustFlight, when they look at an aircraft, the first thing they do is they go find a real aircraft and they pore over it for hundreds of hours, just all over that aircraft, finding every tiny little bit. So that kind of detail, I can understand why you want to try and make as many variants as possible.
Like the F28 back in January, February time, me and a colleague flew over to Amsterdam. Got up at 3 in the morning, flew over to Amsterdam, spent all day at the Vulkan Technical College on the F28 there. Back home for kind of midnight that night, and the following week we were off to see a 146, and then research trips very important.
Yeah.
We went to Toulouse to see an A300.
Wow.
So there's a lot of work involved, obviously, in the research.
Well, there you go. That's Martin from JustFlight, and you can just see what they're coming up with, what they're doing, and the amount of effort that they still put into their current products. And I can't wait to try X-Plane Global, which from this video will probably be a couple of weeks, and then obviously the 747-200 Classic when it comes out for X-Plane. Thank you very much for your time, Martin.
Cheers, thank you.
Right, not long left to go with the interviews that I got, but there are two more, I believe there are two more that are to come, and that is with Laminar Research and also with the Komodo simulations. And those are the last two that I'm going to go through, and we'll start with Laminar Research themselves, so obviously the developers of X-Plane and what they've come out with and what's going on next. And I'm really happy to announce, and obviously they've also announced this, and there's been an article coming out about this recently, that they are looking to get the Vulkan preview. So we're going to have a beta for the Vulkan API, that is, coming up towards the end of the year, which is fantastic news. And the reason that's such great news is that the Vulkan API, speaking with one of the developers, one of the people there at Laminar, the Vulkan API has really improved a number of things. One, it's improved the frame rates. So we're talking about, in some places the frame rates are 25% better, 30% better, 50% better. As a matter of fact, he was saying that in one place, working out the percentage increase in the frame rate, you're talking about almost a 100% increase in frames, which is fantastic. Just with the exact same configuration, instead of OpenGL, using the actual Vulkan API. However, the other thing, and I think this is a lot more important that it seems to have improved, is, well, twofold. There's two things that I think are more important than this. One is the fact that the AMD cards are now going to be equivalent, roughly, if not exactly, to the Nvidia cards. So this is great news for those people who have AMD cards, who have been struggling a little bit with X-Plane. You're now going to have something that is on par with the Nvidia cards, and of course both have been improved. And the other really important thing is stuttering. Now you may notice a little bit of micro stuttering on this video. That's just the OpenGL engine. That's not got anything to do with my graphics card as such. Yes, you can get it smoother if you have a much more powerful processor and much more powerful graphics card, or so on and so forth, but you have this micro stuttering that really shouldn't be taking place. It seems like the Vulkan API has got rid of these, and this is great for VR, because you'll notice the stutters in VR. In the Vulkan API, if those stutters are gone, you're going to have a much smoother VR experience, where even if you had 60 frames per second and you had those stutters, you might start feeling a little bit sick. If that's gone, you're in a much better state now. You're going to enjoy it a lot more. So the next interview is talking a little bit about the Vulkan API and how X-Plane have been getting ready for that, when it's going to come, and what improvements have been made. Now do bear in mind that these improvements may not be across the board, so you're not going to suddenly go from 15 frames per second in London to 100 frames per second in London or anything like that, but you are going to see the improvement. I would rather see 30 frames per second in London with no stuttering, as opposed to 60 frames per second in London with lots and lots of micro stutters. So I'm really looking forward to that. So here's the interview. I hope you guys enjoy. So I'm here with Marty at the X-Plane exhibit, and he's going to be talking a little bit about the future of X-Plane 11. And obviously you guys know that I play a lot of X-Plane 11. That's probably why you're watching this video in the first place. But we'll be talking about the Vulkan engine in particular, and I have mentioned that they're moving to it, and what we expect from X-Plane. So yeah, what do we expect?
Well, we expect a continuation of the past 20 years. We started 20 years ago. We've improved X-Plane every year. We're doing some really exciting things this year, and we'll be doing some exciting things in the future. One of the things we're doing for X-Plane 11, which is our current version, is we're coming out with Vulkan. Vulkan is the new graphics API, which we'll be replacing OpenGL, which we're now running. It's a much smaller, more efficient set of API graphics. So what you'll get is a smoother level of performance, and hopefully in a lot of the computers that X-Plane is running on, you'll also get quite an improvement in frame rate. That's one thing we're really excited excited about, and we should have that in beta by the end of this year, by the end of 2020.
Fantastic, and that's a public beta.
That'll be a public beta, right? We've actually tested it, and we're really encouraged with what we're seeing with it. So.
I mean, when you're talking frame rate improvements, I know some people think when you're talking frame rates, you talk 5%, 10%, but from what I was gathering, what you were talking to me, what you were saying earlier, you're talking about massive frame rate improvements in certain areas.
On some configurations that are showing a really good increase. I'll give you an example. The AMD cards have been somewhat inefficient in the graphic drivers running X-Plane, so there's always been quite a difference between running a comparable AMD graphics card compared to running an NVIDIA card. But with Vulkan, they were going to be even out. So if you have an AMD card, it's going to dramatically improve your performance. We expect improvement in NVIDIA, but probably not quite as well.
Right. So,
but I think really what Vulkan is going to give us is it's going to, in OpenGL, if you look at a graph, and we'll be doing this in our presentation today, showing some actual graphs of OpenGL running and Vulkan running. And what you'll see in OpenGL, and this has been the case all along, is that the sim will grab. And this is, here again, it's a matter of the driver itself. It's not a matter of X-Plane. But OpenGL, when it processes data, it'll like pause to go get something. So you get these spikes. And with Vulkan, that's just all smoothed out. So more important really than increasing the frame rate per se, we're going to get a lot smoother.
Which brings us quite nicely on to what you've actually got at the side here, and that's the VR. Smoothness in VR is sort of paramount, especially you don't want to feel motion sick or anything. So I think, would I be right in saying that the Vulkan engine is really going to make the VR experience far superior than what it is?
Absolutely. And right now, with a VR headset running X-Plane, if you turn everything up, it's really hard to get the kind of performance you need in VR. And with Vulkan, we think that that's going to solve that problem. So
okay, that sounds that is actually really, really good news, especially for those people who want to start getting into VR, because now the market is moving more towards virtual reality. But one of the other questions I had is that when I play X-Plane, I have everything turned up quite the way, all the way up to the max, except reflections, because reflections tend to eat a lot with the current OpenGL API. Has there been any change in the Vulkan API? Do you know if there's been any change?
Address that because specifically I haven't tried it. I can tell you that some of the other settings, like anti-aliasing, work a lot better in Vulkan, or it actually allows you to turn it up higher.
Oh, fantastic! Okay, so but we're definitely looking at quite a lot of performance increases.
Again, with VR, if you look at the anti-alias settings on a monitor, it doesn't bother you that much. When you put it on a VR headset and you get that, that popping, that reflection, it's really cool.
And you'll see those jagged edges.
You'll see a lot better performance.
That's really good, I think, for a lot of VR people, and of course for streamers, content creators, things like that, because they'll now be able to record with really high settings at 60 FPS at least, because at the moment, for myself, I have it turned all the way up, but with all the add-ons, I get about 25 on the ground, but 35, 40 in the air, but seeing it going up to 60, that's going to be absolutely fantastic. So really looking forward to the beta for X-Plane 11's Vulkan engine. I am definitely going to be downloading it. You guys are definitely going to be seeing it on the channel, and thank you very much, Marty, for your time.
All right.
Okay, so lots of great information there from X-Plane, from Laminar Research. I'm very, very excited to try out the Vulkan engine. I am going to be doing that. I'm going to be taking part in that beta. I'm going to go for the actual beta update, because I want to see what it does. Now, it doesn't mean that it will be 100% ready at the end of 2019, but it will be ready sometime soon. It may take another couple of months. That's the thing. It might be ready March 2020. It might be ready January 2020. You never know. But the great thing is that it is coming. It works, and it was at the show, and it's fantastic. It really, really is fantastic. Coming up to the end of this video now, I have one more interview to do, and that is with helicopter simulators. Now, this is the most, I would say this was the most craziest interview I've done off the cuff, because things went very, very sideways on this interview, just because of the nature of the actual people that I was interviewing. It was really, really great, fantastic guys, Komodo Simulations, and they're talking about their new helicopter controls, as well as a little bit about a new helicopter simulator, and a little bit of a chat also from another member, one of the community leaders of the helicopter sim community. So enjoy a triple interview from 3 people that were sort of vaguely related to the same thing. So you've got the software, you've got the hardware, or you've got the hardware first, then you've got the software, then you've got the community that have been crying out for this sort of stuff. Hopefully you'll enjoy this interview. It was a blast to make this one. Very, very difficult to just sort of get questions out. At one point I think I was rather flustered, like what am I supposed to do next? But I hope you will enjoy this interview. And I've never seen a helicopter simulator before. Never seen a helicopter simulator before, and it looks good. It really does look good, and it would be something that I would consider. It's something I would consider. I'm terrible with helicopters, but I would consider it, and it's nice to see that side of flight actually being catered for. So enjoy the interview. So I'm here with Mac at Komodo Simulations, helicopter flight simulator controls, something I've never seen before. Why? What made you come up with helicopters?
Well, Richard here is a real-world helicopter pilot and flies for the air ambulance. Many years ago, Richard wanted to simulate or make simulation controls that were going to actually allow people to have some fidelity over the aircraft, which they didn't have before. It was a very joystick-orientated market space.
Yes.
So Richard worked very hard over 10 years to build the product up to what it is and what we can see today, and allowing for an immersive experience in a VR environment or on a flat screen environment for people that love helicopter simming.
Okay.
So that's where we came from.
So just moving in, just having a quick look at this, I mean, there is a lot here that's very, very specific to helicopters.
Yes.
Things that you don't normally see in the simulator market whatsoever. Normally you're used to yokes and throttle quadrants and things like that. So, I mean, what's the response to the helicopter market?
Yeah, it's been crazy positive response. We've had multiple real-world helicopter pilots on here all day, and the response so far has been, as far as they're concerned, it's a best-in-class product, which for us is wonderful.
Yep.
But also, you can see from the control system itself, we don't really have to do a lot of hard work to sell this.
Yeah.
Just for the simple reason being that it's been designed by somebody who's a real-world helicopter pilot. It's been made with the latest technologies on 3D printing, and also the parts that are used are as close to the real world as you're going to get. So, for instance, looking at the cyclic there, that's metal on the frame there. So a lot of these things are made out of plastic nowadays.
Yeah.
As you can see, good old metal there being demonstrated by Richard. And things like this obviously give you the real world effect that you're looking for, certainly when you're training at home. That's what you want from the product base. So that's where we are, and that's how we started.
I mean, there's a lot of real world training, people say, for jets and general aviation. So this is something that is, revolutionary in a sense. Now, with regards to it, how would the setup go? Like I can see here that you've got a VR style setup, and you've got a few, you've got some beams and thrusters and things like that.
Yeah.
How would it fit into a home environment? What do you need?
This is exactly what you need. So basically, on the back of the controls, which I don't know if you can see there, USB connectors.
Yep.
So the SIM itself would come on the frame, already connected for you.
Right.
USB connectors into your PC. With today we're using the Vive Pro.
Okay.
That would connect to your PC, and then you're up and flying.
Okay, so this is actually a full frame helicopter sim.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. That's good. That seems to be pretty good there. So the helicopter sim that you're using.
Yes. This is a new
helicopter sim, right?
Made by Mr. Fred Nass over here, who I'll hand you over to now to speak to.
Am I moving in? Okay.
Yeah. So we've got the kit. We know what it's been made, what it's been made like, or who's made it. what about the sim? What made you make the sim? That just a specific helicopter sim?
Yeah, the idea of, well, there is a number of very good helicopter models, you know, in X-Plane and such. What I wanted to do was an approachable sim that people that do not know anything about helicopters might get interested in. Okay?
Right.
So it's an alpha, not even an alpha. You know,
Okay.
I've been working on it for about 1 year.
Okay.
And it's a rescue helicopter simulator.
Okay.
So you'll be able to go and rescue people, you know, in different situations. So you'll be able also to act as a medic or a paramedic.
Right, okay.
Walk
So basically what Rich is
doing. Yeah. And also walk outside of your helicopter and do things.
Okay.
And you know, post-rescue and things like that. Obviously, it's an alpha, so there is still a lot of things to be done. I'm quite known by the helicopter simmers community because I developed in the past an add-on for Flight Simulator, Microsoft Flight Simulator called Helicopter Total Realism, which is seemingly one of the best add-on, at least on the
He's being very modest. He's being exceptionally modest.
And so I said I wanted to have the complete freedom of not using a third-party, you know, flight simulator. And this is Airlines is also planned to be extremely easy to mod and new helicopters, terrains, and create new adventures.
Right, yeah, I mean, I don't fly helicopters because I tend to bin them, but the thing is, when I used to fly helicopters, I used to fly them in Flight Simulator 2004, FSX. The last time I flew something that was a pure helicopter style game or sim was Comanche 4. So it's great to actually have an actual helicopter sim coming about, and I do look forward to seeing this, the development of this. I mean, I can see the alpha footage right now, and it already looks really good. So I can't wait to see what becomes of this. How long do you think it's going to take of development, or are you just taking your time getting it all right?
It depends really much on the quality you want to put into it.
Okay.
This is I'm using a game engine. This is Unreal Engine.
Okay. Yep.
And it is capable of incredible.
Good choice.
So this is good. It can be 10 times good.
Yep.
Okay. So this is now how far will it push it graphic-wise is a big thing. I plan to have something released within next year, let's say.
Awesome.
But as you know, software development goes, sometimes it's difficult.
Yeah.
The reason for a dedicated helicopter flight simulator is also the flight altitude you use. So if you're flying on X-plane, it has to be beautiful, thousands of feet in the air.
Yeah.
Helicopters usually fly about 500 feet above the terrain, so even the textures, the buildings have to be different.
Yeah, so you need more higher fidelity textures because you're much closer to the ground at all times.
You normally don't fly that high.
Yeah.
You have no reason to go that high. Actually, it's not good for the performance of the helicopter.
Right.
Also, so it's not like a plane, right? The higher you fly, the better it goes. Helicopter is the opposite. The higher you fly, the worse it goes.
Right, yeah.
So you tend to stay safely above the ground, but not as much as a plane.
Right, okay, well, I can't wait to see that actual title hit the market. And also, well, this is
talk to this guy.
This is surprisingly good, right?
And it's from Helisimmer.
We've got another one. We've got a triple interview coming in.
Yeah, you have to talk.
Hi. Oh, I have to talk now?
We might as well put a third in. Right.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm moving away.
Yeah. All right, someone from helisimmer.com. What am I asking him? Here's one.
He's the head of the community.
Ah, right, okay, so you know a lot about this helicopter sim that's coming up, and I'm assuming you know him quite well.
Yeah, I know Fred for some time, yes.
Right, okay.
I don't know as much as Fred. It's him.
But your opinion on a sim like this?
Yeah.
It's good.
It's something that the community wants for quite some time.
Right, okay.
No, it's not just about flying helicopters and having a good flight model, but it's also about having something to do, have some missions, actual goals in a sim.
Yes.
Right, which is something that the community has been asking for a long time.
Yeah.
There are some sims that have missions, but usually helicopter missions are very simple or very few. And something like Airlines, a dedicated helicopter flight simulation sim with missions, and a good flight model, it's something that the community not only is asking for so long, but the community is more than welcome to embrace.
the community has heard about Airlines, and we are very excited about it. And they're just waiting for Fred to release it out and let us play with it. Actually,
he's a marked man.
Yes.
To me, it sounds like something community called out for something. Fred's gone ahead and made it, and then we've got the kit.
Yeah,
we've got the kit for it as well.
So you've got it all. It's all there now.
Yeah.
Well, thank you to all three of you.
Thank you.
I really look forward to seeing all of this going. Thank you for your input on that. And I think this kit looks fantastic as well. And like you said, you can't really go wrong. If you're interested in helicopters, this is what you need.
Absolutely.
And that was all I had from the interviews at the Flight Sim Show 2019. Orbx, I am planning to get a hold of them and do an interview with them that will be in the sim, and I'm planning to do something with them. Hopefully that works, and if that pans out, you should be seeing that over the next few weeks. I'll try and figure things out. I've got some really great interview questions lined up for Orbx, so hopefully we'll be getting something with them. I want to see what they're doing with their True Earth and things like that. But overall, at the Flight Sim community, or the Flight Sim community at that show, it was really great. People were excited to see all these new different bits and bobs, the new sims that are coming out. I was really interested in the whole infinite flight, especially, like I said, the air traffic control sector of infinite flight. I thought that's going to be fantastic. Komodo simulations, which you just had the interview with, interested in seeing that new heli sim. I'm interested in that. Laminar with the Vulkan, I'm really interested in that. JustFlight, I want to see the aircraft that we have in prepared, and Flight Simulator 10. I want to see that in X-Plane. I want to see what Flight Sim 2020 does. I'm really interested in Flight Sim 2020. I want to see how that works, what it's going to do. It looks incredible. Obviously, this one isn't about this video, this episode. This video isn't about Flight Sim 2020, but I am very interested in that actual sim and seeing what comes of that. But there's just so much happening in the Flight Sim community at this moment in time. There is the Deadstick sim. That's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to play that. That's definitely going to be on my channel. The hardware, the improvements in hardware, Fulcrum and Honeycomb, the quality that we see now compared to what it was a few years ago for the same sort of price, now is just so much better. It's amazing how this community has grown and how much interest there is in this community, and I'm really looking forward to actually seeing what becomes of this over the coming year. All those things that I mentioned, all the interviews I did, massive thanks to every single one of those people, the exhibitors for being there, the members of the development teams, various development teams, for taking their time out to actually sit and actually give me the time to do an interview with them. For Laminar, the amount of time and effort they spend in working on what they work on. There was a number of things that they work on that I was speaking to them. I'm not allowed to tell you guys, but there was a number of things that are working on that are absolutely incredible. I cannot wait to see them pull this off and actually bring that to the sim in a beta, or eventually properly into the sim. I cannot wait to see these things. The hard work that these developers put in, Komodo, the effort they put into their product, the new heli sims, Fred for the new heli sims, the way he's put in that effort, the testing that goes into these things, Fulcrum, the amount of time and iterations they've put into developing that product, the virtual airlines, the amount of effort they put into that, VATSIM, how they create that service, it's absolutely fantastic. Orbx as well, this True Earth, it's absolutely stunning. As I come over the M6 now, coming towards Coventry, I literally was flying visual at one point, even though I had my instruments. In this video, when I was recording it, I'm just flying visual, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I know that road, okay, this is where I'm. That's why at points you saw me sort of zooming in. I was just trying to get a better idea, look forward, look ahead, see the roads, and go, oh yeah, I'm here, I'm traveling down the M1, I can see the M1 there's the M6, there's the M69, there's the M62, oh, there's Derby, there's Manchester, there's Sheffield, whatever it was. it was fantastic. You know, there's the Peak District. Okay, if I fly along there, I know I'm going to fly over Matlock or whatever. I was going to be Leicester on this side, or if I go too far, I know I'm going to come up to Northampton. I'm going to know I've gone too far. It was brilliant, and to be able to do that in a sim is absolutely incredible, and the amount of hard work that they put into it is phenomenal. It's absolutely brilliant, and I'm extremely thankful to each and every one of these developers, each and every one of these community members, each and every one of these add-on manufacturers for the effort and time that they put into this sort of stuff. It's absolutely fantastic. As I come in on final for Coventry, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. I know this has been an extremely long video, probably looking at about 1.5 hours, 1 hour 15 minutes, 1.5 hours. I know that the area I've been speaking in, or the time that I've been speaking, is coming up to about 45 minutes, if not slightly more. So I do know this is going to be a very long video. I will try and timestamp it, I will try and remember the timestamps, and I will try and get some subtitles in for the interview so that you lot can actually, you know, read the subtitles if part of the interviews are garbled. If you want to see more from me in terms of interviews, in terms of looking at hardware or things like that, please let me know in the comments box. I'll be happy to try and contact as many people as I can to try and get these interviews for you guys, so that you have a preview of products that are coming, so that you lot know what my thoughts are on them, and so that you lot can make educated decisions on what you purchase. If you like this video, please hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be going to Cosford hopefully next year as well, if all things go as planned, and often they don't, but I'm pretty sure that I will be able to go to Cosford next year for the next show, and I'll be able to see what's changed in 2020. We'll be talking about 2021 before you know it. Also, you can support me on Patreon, www.patreon.com/ecgadget. Your support would be massively appreciated. It would really help me out, and yeah, I would really appreciate support if possible. And you can find me on social media. That's Twitter and Instagram at ecgadgetlp. That's all from me. Once again, thank you for watching. Thank you to the developers for developing and for allowing us to sort of live a sort of a dream as a pilot, but without having to actually leave our home or having to spend thousands, tens of thousands of pounds in terms of cash. Let's bring yourselves in. That's a really nice sort of leg that I've got going here. Final, nice stable descent. So yeah, that's all from me. Thank you very much once again, and I'll see you guys in another X-Plane 11 video, maybe in a Deadstick video some point soon, Infinite Flight on VATSIM. There's loads of things to go and loads of things for me to actually now try, so I'll see you there, and enjoy the rest of your day.